Outliers, how are you? Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. It's an absolute pleasure to be in space with two incredible outliers here on the Outliers Edge roundtable. In today's conversation, we're going to see how each of these outliers take their experiences and use them to level up their impact, their income, and their identity on a regular basis. Our goal here is to help you play a bigger game than you've ever played before, and to do it in a way that you can do that feels like it's in integrity and in alignment with you. So why don't we get a chance to get to know our esteemed guests here today? Why don't we start with you, Alex? Alex, tell us more about you and the game that you're playing.
It's great to be here, and thanks for having me, Niiamah. So I'm Alex Auerbach. I'm a performance psychologist by training, former college and NFL coach, now running a business helping founders, entrepreneurs, executives, writers, musicians, performers in different spaces figure out how they unlock their full potential and be the best that they can be. And that's really the game I'm playing. I'm trying to figure out how I can become the highest, best version of myself and serve the communities that I'm a part of and ultimately make a big impact, particularly in two spaces. One is business and the other is youth sports, both of which have been good ecosystems to me. I'd love to figure out how to give back in the biggest way I can. So thanks again for having me.
Thanks for being here. It's the fun way to play the game. Simon, I'd love to give outliers a chance to get to know you. Mind telling us more about you and the game you're playing?
Wow, that's definitely quite the introduction to Alex. I wish I don't know if I could top that, but yeah, Zaim Zamri here.
I'm gonna
Uh,
pause you real quick here. And let's be in this space here of like we're gonna each be able to play and have our own spaces because I want to make sure we don't have to worry about topping each other or feeling like one person is topping. But like it's important here. Like and the reason I say this here is not like it's partially for us, but also partially for outliers here because we are creating the rules of this game. And the rules and the underlying one of the underlying rules of this game is you can be as big as you can be and still be met and be asked to continue growing with each other. So I want to make sure that we're setting that up and setting that foundation right off the bat. Normally, what you said is what people like respond to, but in this space, the rules of the games are just very different. We just want to see all of you. So, given that here, let's keep growing together. Tell us more about you and the game you're playing.
yeah, no, okay, so yeah, Zaim Zamri here. I'm a salesperson, a consultant, and an advocate for adults and kids on the autism spectrum. And where I'm at right now, I'm in cybersecurity space. I've worked with multiple companies and startups in artificial intelligence, technology, software, construction, and even executive search firm. And me being in the cybersecurity space has always kind of fulfilled my curiosity ever since I was a kid. And me being an advocate of the kids and adults on the autism spectrum has always kind of served me for my mission because one of my cousins actually was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. I mean, yeah, Asperger's, which is almost very similar to what Elon Musk has. And I have like full faith to kind of like want to help people like him kind of like fulfill their potential because nothing feels much more better than just really working alongside with kids or even adults on the autism spectrum because they know they have a very strong superpower. They just need help and guidance to that. And that's one of my biggest goals in life. Like the cybersecurity is one thing. Oh, and top. And thirdly, I forgot to add, yeah, founder and the host of the Thrive and Vibe podcast, and working alongside with Niiamah to really get it backed up. Yeah.
Well, I am thrilled that each of you are here. I get excited to see wherever this conversation goes. I realize it does actually feel like a game for me, where it's like I have the general ideas of where our boundaries are and where what the rules are in the game, more or less. But then, every person and every player in it like takes it to new heights, right? So let's start off here. I want to start off with this concept of up leveling. I want to look at like the different beliefs that y'all have along the way. Right. So, what I'll do is I'm curious about the beliefs that you needed to up level for yourself in order to play at the level that you're playing at right now. And if you really want to lean in, you can go and be like, look, I can tell you about where I'm at right now, but for where I'm heading to, this is the thing, this is the belief that is getting challenged the most right now. So, let's bring it. Alex, why don't we start with you on this one here, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes from there.
I I am glad you're picking on me first. I think because for me, a lot of it is it's actually kind of the same belief, right? Like for me, I think the main thing I've struggled with and continue to sort of wrestle with is really understanding what is my value in the different spaces I bring, both from like a monetary perspective, but also an impact perspective, right? Like I work in a world that is incredibly hard to quantify. When you're a performance psychologist, like the way that you measure people getting better is like they tell you they feel better, and then like how do you know that what that's worth, or and so if I think about where I'm kind of trying to go, right, and scale up what I do and make more of an impact, I think I still wrestle with maybe a limiting belief around how much value I really do bring and like what's it worth to have the expertise I have, kind of thing. I think that would be one. And then I think the second is balancing my own identity, right, and trying to sort of like feel more conviction about who I am as an entrepreneur and what I'm doing in my own kind of personal business, and feel like that's like quote unquote good enough. I think does also hold me back from where I'm trying to take my business into the next few years.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being real about it, Alex, as you come on. A couple of things that strike me right away. One of them is just like how you lead and you said, I'm glad you're picking me first for this, right? I get to have a lot of conversations, and sometimes sometimes I pick people, sometimes I let them pick, but a lot of times I hear like the response of like, oh, you're putting me on the spot. You're the first person that I've heard that said thank you. I'm glad from that here. And I think like, outliers, like these are the subtleties that I look for when I say like, okay, like let's keep leaning in. I can see a bit of how you play your game. Alex, are you used to being one of the first that does the things you do?
Well, when your name is Alex Auerbach and you're AA, you start going as a kid really early in all
Yeah.
things. So yes, been socialized into going first
This
for
is so funny. This is
for a
funny to me
really long
because
time.
we have AA on one side and we have ZZ on
I
the
was about
other.
to make that comment. Yeah, it's like I'm just like yeah, meme abbreviation is just going to sleep.
Yeah.
Your AA, that's like a double A battery.
Yes. All right, cool. Well, but I like that. I like picking up on some of these things as it goes on. So, like, so you talked about that, and you talk about like what's your value. And what was the thing that was interesting to me was as you were talking, it made me think of. Oh, I used to love this TV show. I can't remember why I can, but it made me think of Wendy. If maybe if say the word Wendy, you'll know all the rest of it.
Millions, yeah.
Millions, exactly. Well, not millions, just billions, right?
Billions, yeah.
Billions, yeah. It's like millions. Billions is not cool. I know what's really cool? A billion, yeah. If you get the reference, send me a message. Like, yeah, we'll go from there. But like, let me just check with you. Is the space that you play similar to like a space where Wendy plays? Is that kind of where you are?
Yeah, it is. I don't work for just one company
Yeah.
anymore. But I think yes, it's pretty similar.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, I appreciate you bringing that in here, and just like we'll see how we get to play with that here, and keep growing. Zaim, how about you? What's a belief that you are currently up leveling right now to play at your next level?
Yeah,
Exactly.
the belief that I am currently playing to get to my next level is being relentless or trying to activate being relentless. So I'm currently reading the book by Relentless by Tim Grover, and he was the coach that pretty much the mastermind behind Michael Jordan's success, Kobe Bryant's, and Dwayne Wade. And I just love it that he has this methodology or philosophy is that we all can be relentless. You don't have to be born a superhero or superhero trait. In fact, like even when he said Kobe Bryant wasn't the most athletic to begin with, but it's just a mindset of things. And there's just like three ways of saying there's the cleaners, there's the coolers, and I think the one. But I would like to kind of get that cleaner set, like uh, knowing what you need to do and just being confident about it and own it.
I love this here. Like, Alex, is there something about this that's popping off for you?
Just that I love a good basketball metaphor, and obviously, yes, there's a lot in that work. From he's got a couple books, I think, Relentless and Unstoppable, both of which hit on just how much mindset makes the difference, even for some like world class physically gifted performers. So it's really cool that you're reading that. I just I like endorsing the basketball world.
I get that. And like, I take that endorsement really seriously. So Outliers, if you haven't yet, like, go check out that book. I'm like, both of y'all know about this here. And I have a very simple principle in life. It takes two dots to make a straight line. Two dots to make a line. So the first time I hear it, I may not act on it, but then the second time I hear it, I'm like, oh well, it's shown up twice in a certain period of time. Let me lean into that. So I know what I'm going to use some of my my Audible books on soon. Uh, so Alex, like let's talk about this here. You've had a successful career, and then you decided to make a move for yourself. Talk to us about like the talk to us about like the transition to that move, and where you've seen to be like the biggest challenge for you as you've been like making that move on, and also I'm also curious on the other side of it, like what's been like one of the bigger rewards.
So the move really came about after I had my first kid. My first daughter is a little over 2, and when you work in the NBA, you spend an awful lot of time in hotels. And so the basic math was really for every 3 years I worked in the NBA, I would end up missing about a year of her life in terms of calendar time. I spent about 130 nights a year on the road, which is an awful long time to be gone. And so at that point for me, it was pretty clear what's the right thing to do for my family and what I felt like would put me in position to be the best dad I could be. And so it was still a very hard decision. Like I loved my job. I loved who I worked with. I felt really valued. The work was fun. But it was really just a choice around like deeper core values around who I wanted to be as a dad and what I felt would be most important for my family long term and for my daughter long term. And so made the decision to leave at the end of a season, kind of transitioned out of that time. And I think in some ways, was fortunate to have a long transition because it gave me a little bit of time to level set and have some kind of new experiences without a total loss of a job. But I think, to come back to identity for a minute, for me, the biggest thing was I had spent a long time building towards this like pinnacle role in my field and really developed a strong identity around being a leader in my space and contributing in that way, and then basically gave it all up, and made the choice to leave professional sports. And with that, you asked about the challenging thing. I mean, I think this may be taboo to say, but I'll say it anyway. Like, there's a lot of status that comes with working in pro sports, and you get access to a lot of fun stuff. And, the people who I had come up with and grown with professionally, I think, admired that. And it earned me, some really fun and cool opportunities that I simply wouldn't get on my own as just, Alex. But Alex with the Raptors, gets cooler things like meeting Drake, like Drake's not going to meet me on my own. But yeah, in that world, you kind of get that. Right. And so that I think was the hardest, was the sort of like true loss of status from being at the top and leader to now, basically being in my own mind, kind of like a regular Joe. And then I think, the process of sort of rebuilding an identity around being an entrepreneur and challenging myself really honestly only took a leap forward maybe 4 weeks ago as we went through Thanksgiving break. I think I kind of crossed this threshold in my business where for the first time things were not only stable, but things were like good with cushion, And all of a sudden it was like, oh, maybe I can do this. Like maybe I can do this. And then I started to reflect on what are the things I've gotten as a function of this. And it's like, well, I get to see, now I have a second daughter. I get to see both my girls 5 times a week, right? In the morning, I have them all by myself 3 times a week, and then I spend the weekend with them. And like in the NBA, I'd be lucky if I saw them 3 times a week for a few hours based on how old they are. I get more time with my spouse. I get more time with my family. I get to live in a place that's warmer and sunnier than Canada. And so, the lifestyle benefits have been better. And I think my confidence in who I am now has finally caught up enough where I don't need that status that I had in professional sports to sort of feel um, solidified in who I am professionally, because I'm able to give myself my own confidence in my business with that being solidified. And so I feel finally a bit more solid professionally. And as I noticed that, like the pressure I was putting on myself to, make a specific living, right? And like not have a material decrease in my quality of life from leaving professional sports. Like once I realized that wasn't going away, it's totally freed me up. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with all this free headspace yet because it's only been a month, but it's been a big change to kind of get to that point.
Well, I'm glad you're there. I think like it seems to be exciting times to be catching you right now, where you're like, all right, I can hear the shift there, and you're like, I have the space now to think about what comes next. Just so I get a little bit of timeline here. You talked said that your oldest daughter is 2 right here. So has it been about like 2 years in business, and then like I'm catching you just like a couple weeks after it's all kind of come together, or is it like what would you say the timeline was? It's been
Yeah, roughly right. I mean, I would say it was really maybe January of 2023, if my math is right, when I kind of like knew, okay, like this is a change I'm going to make, and I probably need to start building toward that change. But I wasn't going to be able to actually make a change until really April when the NBA season ended. So I made the change. Like I called like, okay, I'm going to leave, and had the conversation. And then a series of things actually happened that sort of like it wasn't appropriate for me to leave right away, so I had this plan to go, and in wanting to honor my relationships with the people I had worked with, I basically stayed on for another 3 months to do right by the organization that had done right by me. And that, I was still working on my own stuff, but it kind of delayed the leap into my own thing. And so it was really maybe September 2023 when I was like, okay, I'm on my own and I have to like figure out what it means to be on my own. And then my contract ended in January of this year officially. And so then that was like really, really you're on your own. And then it was, Thanksgiving, basically like literally the day after, when I sort of like started to get out of some of that um ambivalent and more, not negative, but certainly like more confused and disoriented headspace.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing that into this conversation. I want to see how we can play with this here. Zaim, like, let me ask you here. There's something that's really hitting me around like the true loss of status, and being in your mind a regular Joe, Alex. You said, and I think that there's the thing about outliers that are listening to this who know that like, hey, from where I'm at, I've reached the pinnacle, I've reached the top, I'm on my way to the top, or my identity slash what people know me as is like so deeply rooted in like this thing that I'm now walking away from. And I want to like try and move on from there. So I'm not sure if there's anything that like really lights up for you around this year, but I'm curious about anything that you've gone through or and like how you've been able to walk away from something where you were known, you're like at the top of your game, and then then choose to move on from there. Anything come to mind for you on that?
Yeah, I was like actually pretty much on top of my game before I made the shift to sales. I was actually like a consultant. Like I was actually an SA working at SAP for 2 years and then did some private consulting within construction. And then once I really kind of got into healthcare where I was actually kind of exposed to the neurodiversity and then again that I thought of like autism spectrum because I thought about my cousins. It really kind of made me just want to be like, you know what? It's really not money's great and all, and just a really and make a strong transaction for each client, but ooh, like it didn't fulfill me as much versus just like okay, I am really helping someone directly, not just donating it, but I'm actually putting hands-on approach and really mentoring. And I think the mentoring aspect really kind of got me. I just I don't care about being at the top. Like if it's great, I got on the top, but it wasn't like my drive as much anymore. So yeah, and then that's why I really walked away from that. And yeah, that's pretty much like, and I'm still kind of like riding towards that. And as well as with my podcast. So yeah.
So now y'all got me thinking here about like reinvention, right? Last night, I'm laughing because of the way I'm thinking about this, but last night, a few fortunate, maybe unfortunate people got like kind of like a text barrage from me as I felt like some different things around the business and started to come into place, right? And one of them came back to me later on and said, "So, like, what help do you want with this?" Right after I sent it over. And I recognized that like the biggest thing I wanted to do was just to be seen. So for me, it was just to give us some context here. It was just me looking at my business and realizing that I had been oscillating between like, do I show up as a coach? Do I help them people with their podcast? Do I help people make money through like how do I do like I have a movement in me? Like am I being true to it? All the different ways that I feel I can be expressed. Um, and what ended up happening was that I recognize I'm like, oh, there's a container that is larger than the container that I'm creating. Another way I call it a container, but it's like there's a way that I can hold myself where like all these things make sense. And I'll put it into this space right now. This is coming out in February or something like that. So like by the time this comes out, I might hopefully be like fully integrated into it all. But like this is me being real. This is my edge right now. It's like the idea of saying like, how do I move from the idea came, what if I wasn't a coach, but instead I just like and I wasn't building toward having a podcast network, but I just built a podcast network. And I brought people in and I said, okay, you're going to get coaching from me. You're going to get all the different things that I was doing that I feel like offering because it's all just a part of like the ecosystem to help you be successful if you were going to be on my network, right? It's almost like I don't know. Part of me feels like if I thought of myself as an investor, I could do everything I wanted to do because I just like want to invest in you and just help you be as successful as possible. So I'm right now as we talk in the crunch of rethinking and reinventing myself to be something that honestly I think I'm concerned people be like, oh, another new way of thinking about yourself, Niiamah, where I'm like, this is actually how I continue to keep leveling up. So I want to just toss it to the two of you all here. Like how do you like approach reinvention? How do you approach like, figuring it out and creating enough space for you to do what you actually want to do rather than like relying on the examples of what you think would work and keeping yourself smaller in that regard. Curious if anything is playing out for you. I'm not asking for coaching. I'm happy for it, but like I'm really curious about like your journey and your playthrough.
I mean, I can say for me, my process has really been there's some cool nerdy science and psychology around this concept of explore and exploit. And so for me, explore is like lots of experiments. Like, I mean, when I started my own thing, I feel like I tried like 15 different paths. I looked at like coaching this type of professional or doing more therapy or launching writing a book or doing a podcast or whatever, right? Like all these things that I've seen kind of people who I look at for me, it's very lifestyle driven. So I look at how they've organized their life and how they spend their time. And I think, oh, that would be a cool way to spend my time. Like, what would it look like to kind of build toward that? And so I did a lot of experimenting and then really trying to dial into like, where do I actually get energy and how do I balance that with the real needs that I have as a person to like put food on the table kind of thing. And I think my experience in the entrepreneurship space and like just take it for whatever it's worth, but I think there's a lot of like dogmatic stuff around like, you got to go all in. And if you're not putting a big risk, like you're not doing it right. And it's just like, one, I don't even know that that's true. And two, I think that sort of overlooks like, that there are other ways to kind of get where you want to go that don't necessarily require you putting everything on the line, especially if you putting everything on the line puts other people on the line. I think that's actually problematic. So for me, the process has really been about like intentional experimentation, reflection, and then iteration around what works, what gives me energy, and being patient with it. Like that's that was the big unlock for me over Thanksgiving, really was I was putting so much pressure on myself to just get it done in an arbitrary timeline. Like no one wins if I race and get it done by 2025. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't really doesn't change anything for anybody but me. And if it's causing me more strain to pretend that it has to be done by January, like why am I doing this to myself? Like just be a little bit more patient, let it unfold. If it happens in June, it happens in June. Like who cares? And that mindset shift, I think, then made a lot more space for like, yes, you want to be intentional and have ambition and drive toward a goal, but you also don't need to do it in a way that's destructive.
what's cool about this is like it feels like this is the second time that that this has showed up. The first one was when you were leaving the last job. You're like, I'm leaving by April, and then you're like, actually, I don't need to be doing this in a way that would be destructive. I can like give myself some more time and then allow that to come in. So it's cool kind of hearing the same story just from a different perspective here around our own internal timelines. As you're talking about that, it's making me think about what happened for me yesterday. And for me, it was like, oh, I'm trying to pigeonhole myself into one way of being. I offer this one thing. Is it? And like the thought for me was like, oh, actually, I don't know which thing to focus on because all these things are showing up. What if I just created myself in a way where it would be completely acceptable for me to do all the things? And like it wouldn't make sense if I didn't. If I only brought in 4 out of the 5, people would say like, well, how could you possibly call yourself a XYZ, whatever that title would be? Because you're not actually bringing everything that is necessary to solve the problem. So as you reflect on the time component of it, it's helping me see that like, oh yeah, for me it was around the can I bring everything I want into one space or do I need to choose? So thanks for that. Zaim, what's popping off for you right now? Like what do you, what's resonating with you? What's reflecting? What do you want to bring in?
Yeah, and I think what's resonating with me about like reinventing yourself, I just think about the caterpillar turning into a cocoon, and you have to kind of recharge and reflect, and then once that time comes at a very specific season, like you'll just grow into a butterfly and just fly through. That's like the first thought, and then the second thought is just think about the the tree, like so like let's just say like the tree grows and it actually just becomes a flourish and just stays there. And as long as it's well kept, it's still just, gives a lot more value. Like, an apple tree gives back to the community or the leaves. It's just in a way great. And even during the wintertime, like with all the leaves are all completely gone, but the foundation is still there. I feel like that's what we as humans do is like as long as like we will lose, we will definitely get stumped. But as long as we have our strong core foundation, which is like families, our resources, our beliefs, our faith, we can go through with it and it will still change your life. So that's why I always was thinking about reinventing and experimenting, rebalancing.
Love this shit. Y'all, thanks for the conversation. It's fun because every once in a while, like I can have this conversation. I can stay outside and be like the facilitator, but every once in a while, I get a chance to play with you all too. And so you're getting me to think in many cool ways. Um, the next thing that came up here, we're gonna have probably one time for like one more question. Um, All right, so Alex, I'll say you kind of sparked my thinking when you brought up the fact that like you're like for me it's very lifestyle driven, and what brought out what was important for me around that was around the alignment of it all, like not to like if it was about making money, great, it's about making money. If it's about lifestyle, it's about like but like you were discerning what options to go down based on is it in alignment with the purpose of me doing this. And I feel like it's kind of like purpose with a lowercase p versus like my soul's purpose. And so I'm curious for you all here, um, essentially how y'all navigate staying in alignment with, with your purpose, whether it's big capital P purpose or lowercase p, and how you navigate that as it comes along. If it helps, you can also share like a project that you're taking on right now that like that like you feel is actually very much in alignment with your purpose right now and how you're bringing that in. So I'm Alex. Uh, any of you being called to answer this one?
Zaim, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, repeat that question again, Niiamah, just to make sure.
Yeah. I guess the way I would look at it here is like one, how are you like choosing to stay in alignment with your purpose, right? And the other way of looking at this here is what's a project that you're taking on right now that feels like big, feels like, big for you that you're growing into that's also keeping you in alignment with your purpose, whether it's a capital P or big or lowercase p.
I think both, so uppercase and lowercase p. But the what's keeping me really much in alignment is yeah, like my cousin who's on the autism spectrum. I mean, that has Asperger, and me just want to kind of fulfill my younger self too, because there's that. I believe like we're all a kid in an adult body. That whatever we somewhat lack in our childhood or what we dreamed of in our childhood, like what we are as our current self. I mean, as, like once you grow up, like we are still in a way doing some sort of way to pursue that and make that inner child happy. And I'm a huge proponent of like just thinking of the inner child, uh, and like making your inner child. And just also make sure I have this big quote in my bedroom that says, "I know your why, and to know your why is big enough, it has to make you cry." And because I believe all humans are emotionally okay or emotionally all right to kind of cry. I've seen my father cry just because he had a big why to really come to Malaysia, and Malaysia with his family, not having any other family members or relatives, and he wanted to just kind of go in and say, I I want to kind of like provide a better opportunity for my kids, much more better than what they could get here. I mean, get back in Malaysia, and yeah, he's fulfilled that, and now he's already fulfilled, you know, like me, if that's what he wanted the kids to feel and be happy and proud and keep on growing. He has other whys, so but again, it's like if your why doesn't make it cry, it's not big enough.
You're on mute, Niiamah, but I can imagine what you're saying, which is like I've never heard that before, but I really like that, and I think that's pretty cool, man. That's a really cool framework for thinking about it. And now I'm thinking about mine and whether or not it would make me cry, and like if I have to kind of reimagine it. And I guess for me, yeah, I mean the question of like how do I stay organized around it is I think I try to be as present with my experience as I can be and stay kind of anchored around like what I, at least in today, what I actually value, like what I really do think is most important and what's kind of a vanity metric. Like for whatever reason, these last 2 days, to use like business as a clear example, I've had like a couple different conversations with people in my space who are thinking about, the dream of in quotes, right, of starting a big company, and they have this dream of if I, make $5 million or $10 million in a year, like wouldn't that be amazing? And it's like, look, if you do the math on all that and like the people you have to hire and all these other things, it's not like you're making $10 million, like it's a little different than that. And so it's like, what do you really want to create? Like, do you want to say that you made $10 million and then the end of the day your paycheck is 1% of that or 10% of that or whatever, right? Or do you want to make $500,000 but you keep 90% of that? And like those are two different games to play, and one's not better or worse than the other. But I think people just get caught up in the like big vanity stuff, and I think a lot of that is ambition and good, but a lot of it is also um not fully being in touch with like what's the impact you're trying to make, and a little bit more in touch with what's the money you're trying to make. And money's valuable, but really only if it serves you in what you're trying to pursue.
So I think firstly, Alex, I'm glad you can read my mind. So you got that. That was nice. I think we're there. I think we're complete for today. So what I'm going to do here is this. Outliers. I'm going to come talk to you, which is I would love to invite you to share this episode with people. However, I want to invite you to do it in a very specific way. Yes, feel free to use your platforms. I know Outliers, like we all have our own different platforms. Feel free to share this on your platform. But I'm actually going to call you into our one person, one conversation at a time initiative, where we look to see like find one person in your life where this conversation would really light them up. One person that like find one person in your life where they get the gift of knowing that you see them and you're thinking of them. And please just send this episode over to them. like I'm very happy to have it, like a lot of people hear this, but I think that some of the underlying impact of this all is going to come from just sharing this one person, one conversation at a time. So if we can do that, it'll mean the world to it. Um, Naeem and Alex, the way that we're going to wrap up our conversation is by sharing something here around an insight that you got from the conversation, as well as your contact info so Outliers can go deeper with you. Alex, I'm going to start with you here. If you can share with us an insight you got from today, if any. If you didn't get any insights, that's also good. But if you can share an insight you got from the conversation and then how Outliers can go deeper with you, we'll start us off with that.
Well, my insight was your why should make you cry, which I love that it rhymes. But for me, that is a really powerful and like visceral way to think about the impact that you're making. So, Zaim, I really appreciate you sharing that and appreciate you for that. And I'm gonna keep that one and probably use it in my own work. So thank you. You can
Welcome,
find
man.
me everywhere on the internet at Alex Auerbach PhD, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then alexauerbach.com. That's where you can find me. You can email me there. I respond to everything. So
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Alex.
thanks for having me.
Zain?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Like Alec, I didn't anticipate the why makes you cry make that big of an impact on you. So yeah, the biggest insight I in a way gotten from today's episode is like, yeah, you just everyone's on their own different paths, and but at the same time we're all still very similar, regardless if you're really kind of starting out or trying to get back into your career or really trying to start a business. Everyone's almost different, but yet it's very similar. And that's why I got the biggest insight here in today's episode. And to kind of follow me, you can definitely follow my personal Instagram. It's like Zaim Zamri, or check out my podcast as I'm trying to get it back up. It's at the thrive5podcast.com.
Well, I want to thank both of you for spending the time here, for spending the time not just on this episode, but like to get to this point here. You really brought something special here, and it's been nice to be able to be in the conversation with you in this way. From that place here, I'm going to say to you, Outliers here, remember to be you on purpose. Journey on.